"We can't afford much," Tom whispered, his voice rough with exhaustion and something that might have been shame. They'd driven 17 hours straight from their foreclosed farm in Nebraska, chasing a job opportunity that had evaporated the moment they arrived in Portland. Now, with $43 to their name and nowhere else to turn, this roadside motel represented their last shred of dignity before sleeping in the truck became their only option. The lobby smelled of stale cigarettes and industrial cleaner. Behind the front desk sat a man whose entire demeanor screamed self-importance, slicked back hair, expensive watch that seemed absurdly out of place in this establishment, and a smile that never reached his calculating eyes. His brass nameplate read, "Marcus Webb, General Manager." "Help you?" Marcus drawled, not bothering to look up from his phone. "We need a room for the night," Tom said, straightening his shoulders despite the weariness that bent his spine. "The cheapest you have." Marcus finally glanced up, his gaze traveling deliberately over their mud-stained boots, worn jackets, and the desperation they couldn't quite hide. His lip curled slightly. "Cheapest room is $85, cash only. And I'll need a $50 deposit for potential damages." Sarah's heart sank. They couldn't afford that. Not if they wanted to eat tomorrow, or put gas in the truck to reach Tom's brother in Seattle. "Do you have anything less expensive?" she asked softly, hating how small her voice sounded. Marcus leaned back in his chair, his amusement barely concealed. "This isn't a charity, ma'am. You can pay for the cheap room and leave your deposit, or you can leave. Simple as that." He punctuated his words with a dismissive wave. "Frankly, I don't appreciate your kind loitering in my lobby. Bad for business." The words hung in the air like a slap. Tom's jaw tightened, and Sarah felt tears prickling behind her eyes, not from sadness, but from the burning humiliation of being treated like they were less than human. "Now hold on just a minute." The voice came from the corner of the lobby, where an old man sat in a worn armchair that Sarah hadn't even noticed. He rose slowly, his joints protesting the movement, and walked toward the desk, with the deliberate pace of someone who'd learned that rushing through life meant missing what mattered. He must have been in his late 70s, with sun-weathered skin that spoke of decades working outdoors, white hair that stuck up at odd angles, and eyes that held an ocean of stories. His flannel shirt was faded but clean, his jeans patched at the knees. Everything about him spoke of humble means, yet he carried himself with a quiet dignity that filled the room. "This young couple needs a place to stay," the old farmer said, his voice gentle but firm. "And you're treating them like criminals for having the honesty to ask about affordable options." Marcus's expression shifted to barely concealed contempt. "And you are?" "Name's Henry Coleman. Been staying here the past 3 nights while visiting my daughter at the hospital downtown." Henry turned to Tom and Sarah, his eyes kind. "You folks look like you've had a long journey." "We have, sir," Tom admitted. "Lost our farm 6 months ago. Thought we had work lined up here. But," he trailed off, the story too raw to finish. Henry nodded, understanding etched in every line of his weathered face. "Farming's in my blood, too. Worked the same land in Iowa for 52 years before my body told me it was time to let my son take over." He turned back to Marcus. "How much for the room they need?" "I already told them." "I heard what you said," Henry interrupted, his voice still soft but with an edge of steel. "I'm asking what you'd charge me if I wanted to book that room for these folks, plus whatever deposit you're demanding." Marcus blinked, clearly not expecting this turn. $135 total." Without hesitation, Henry pulled out a worn leather wallet and counted out the bills, placing them on the counter with the careful precision of someone who knew the value of every dollar. "Here, give them the room." "No," Sarah said quickly, her voice thick with emotion. "Sir, we can't accept—" "Already done," Henry said, waving away her protest with a gnarled hand. "Consider it paid forward from all the times folks helped me when I needed it." Marcus snatched up the money, his face flushed with irritation at being outmaneuvered. He slapped a key on the counter. "Room 118, ground floor, around back. Checkout's at 10. His tone made it clear they shouldn't expect any courtesies. Tom picked up the key with trembling fingers. "How can we ever repay you?" Henry smiled, and it transformed his entire face, making him look decades younger. "You can't, and that's the point. But here's what you can do someday. When you're back on your feet and you see someone struggling the way you are now, you help them. You don't think about it. Don't calculate whether they deserve it. You just help. That's how we keep humanity alive in this world. Sarah couldn't hold back her tears anymore. They spilled down her cheeks as she impulsively hugged this stranger who'd shown them more kindness in 5 minutes than they'd experienced in months. "Thank you," she whispered against his shoulder. "Thank you so much." Henry patted her back awkwardly but warmly. "You're going to be okay, young lady. Both of you. This is just a rough patch, not your whole story." As Tom and Sarah headed toward their room, Henry called after them. "Breakfast is served in the lobby starting at 6. It's included with the room, so make sure you eat well before you hit the road." Marcus waited until the couple disappeared, before sneering at Henry. "That was foolish. They're probably con artists who prey on soft-hearted old fools like you." Henry turned to the manager with an expression that held no anger, only profound sadness. "You know what I see when I look at you, son? Someone who's forgotten what it feels like to need help. Someone who's lost touch with the fact that we're all just one disaster away from being exactly where they are." "I've worked hard for everything I have," Marcus shot back defensively. "So have they," Henry replied quietly. "Hard work doesn't guarantee success. Sometimes crops fail. Sometimes banks foreclose. Sometimes life just knocks you down. And all the work ethic in the world can't change your luck overnight." He leaned against the counter, his voice taking on the cadence of someone sharing hard-won wisdom. "I used to think like you, believe it or not. Thought people in hard times must have done something wrong, made bad choices. Then in 1987, a drought destroyed 2 years of crops in a row. Lost everything except the land itself. Had to choose between feeding my kids and paying the mortgage." Marcus said nothing, but something flickered in his eyes. Interest. Maybe, or the first crack in his certainty. "A stranger, never even got his name, paid off my overdue mortgage. Anonymous cashier's check showed up at the bank just days before foreclosure. $35,000 from someone I'd probably never even met." Henry's voice grew, thick with emotion even after all these years. "That money saved my farm, saved my family, gave me another chance to make something of my life. Everything I built after that, everything I have now, exists because someone chose kindness over judgment." "So you're trying to pay it forward," Marcus said, his tone slightly less hostile. "Not trying, doing." Henry straightened up, preparing to head to his own room. "That couple in room 118, they're not a charity case. They're human beings having the worst time of their lives. And tomorrow they'll wake up with enough dignity intact to keep fighting. That's worth $135 of anybody's money." Marcus watched the old farmer shuffle toward the hallway, his expression unreadable. Then, so quietly, Henry almost didn't hear it. "My sister lost her job last year. Had to move in with me. I help her with rent, but I've been resentful about it, treating her like she's a burden." Henry paused and looked back. "Then maybe you've got some kindness of your own to pay forward, son. Start with the family who needs you." That night, as Sarah and Tom lay in a clean bed for the first time in days, fed by the vending machine snacks Henry had also secretly paid for and left at their door, they held each other and cried, not from despair this time, but from the overwhelming reminder that goodness still existed in the world. 3 months later, Tom's job with his brother turned permanent. 6 months after that, they'd saved enough for a small apartment. And 2 years after their encounter at the Riverside Inn, they received a letter from the Coleman family in Iowa, informing them that Henry had passed away peacefully in his sleep. The letter also mentioned that Henry had kept a journal of every act of kindness he'd witnessed or participated in, thousands of entries spanning decades. The family was sharing excerpts with people he'd helped, hoping to honor his legacy. The entry about Tom and Sarah read, "Met a young couple tonight who reminded me of myself at their age. Proud, hard-working, and temporarily broken by circumstances beyond their control. Gave them a room and a reminder that their story isn't over. Hope they'll pass it on someday. That's how we change the world, one struggling soul at a time." Tom and Sarah framed that letter, and they did pass it on. They've helped dozens of people over the years since, paying for strangers, groceries, covering someone's car repair, offering interest-free loans to friends in crisis. Each act of kindness a living memorial to an old farmer who understood that humanity's greatest currency isn't money, but compassion,